Hi, everybody. It's Scott Leckie from Democracy Tomorrow. Um, I thought it would be useful for just a brief moment to give a quick overview of one of the hundreds of international human rights instruments, many of which are treaties, so legally binding on the states that have ratified them, and make note of why ratification of these treaties is so incredibly important. And to point out the fact that if your country has not ratified the treaty we're going to talk about tonight, which is the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, adopted in 1966 and entered into force, therefore taking on the power of law from 1976 onwards. If your country has not ratified that, you are basically getting shafted, particularly lower income groups, middle income groups, and even some elements of the wealthier classes are getting effectively shafted by your government failing to take on the legal obligations that are a part of this cornerstone treaty of the international human rights law system. 172 countries have ratified this treaty. When you ratify a treaty as a government, you commit in good faith to implement all obligations incumbent upon states that are enshrined within the treaty, and to afford every person under your jurisdiction the full enjoyment of the respect and the protect and the fulfillment of each one of the rights contained in the treaty. 172 countries have ratified the Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights. A handful of countries have not, and I'm going to list those right now. 4 countries have signed the covenant, which indicates an intent to ratify, and 19 member states of the UN have neither signed nor ratified it. So let's start first with those who have signed it but not ratified it. The Comoros, group of islands off the coast of East Africa. It's a nation state. Cuba, Palau in the Pacific, and the United States of America. The United States of America, importantly, signed this in the early years of the Carter administration. In fact, on the 5th of October, 1977. And the United States Senate has yet to approve it and ratify it. So essentially, it's been sitting in the U.S. Senate for 48 years, awaiting action. Before we talk about the implications of that, let me just quickly list the 19 countries that have neither signed nor ratified the covenant. Andorra, Botswana, Bhutan, Brunei, Kiribati, Malaysia, the Federated States of Micronesia, Mozambique, Nauru, Oman, St. Kitts and Nevis, Samoa, Saudi Arabia, Singapore, St. Lucia, Tonga, Tuvalu, United Arab Emirates, and Vanuatu. You'll note that many of those are small island nations. Most of them are developing countries. And they each have their own particular reasons for not ratifying the covenant thus far. But none of those countries come anywhere near the political and economic significance of the United States of America, which, as I said, has signed it but not ratified it. Every single person in the United States who is suffering economically would, in principle, have their lives improved greatly were the United States, and were all the countries that have not yet ratified it, to ratify the covenant and to apply its rules and principles and rights protections universally across the board to everybody to whom they are entitled. What do you get if your government ratifies the covenant? And how does that play out? Well, in a nutshell, we're going to keep this short. You essentially get not only the right to self-determination, which is a fundamental human right, of course. You get the right to work. You get the right to favorable conditions in work. You get the right to form and join trade unions. You get the right to Social Security, including social insurance. You get the right to family life and a number of aspects of that. You get the right to an adequate standard of living, including food, clothing, and housing, the issue that I've worked on the most throughout my career. You get the right to the highest attainable standard of health. You get the right to education, and you get the right to participate in cultural life. These are all articulated in great detail, with each passing year even more detail as they're refined, as case laws develop, jurisprudence developed. There's a whole system of ratifying an optional protocol to the covenant, which allows individuals and groups to submit complaints to the United Nations body that monitors compliance with the covenant, which is the Committee on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights, that meets several times a year in Geneva, so on and so forth. So in the absence of ratification, and in the absence of domestic laws or state laws, if we take the case of the United States, it's very difficult for people in that country to expect a situation of governance which would afford them full access to the rights contained in the covenant. All other OECD countries have ratified the covenant. All of the other G7, G8 countries have ratified the covenant. This is not a ticket to communism. This is not a pathway to economic destruction and despair. It's a ticket towards prosperity and towards greater equality and greater access to the basic fundamental elements of what you need in order to live a full life. America will not decline dramatically and fall apart if they happen to ratify the covenant. But in fact, it would create a baseline below which no state and no federal agency would be allowed to fall. One of the very fundamental elements of the covenant and international law more broadly to bear in mind is the basic fundamental principle that states never take what is called a deliberately retrogressive measure when it comes to the rights that are already protected in treaties that they have ratified. You cannot deliberately go backwards. You must at least be conservative and stay where you are, with the quest towards ever-growing levels of improvement. Or, preferably, you can seek progressive and evolutionary steps forward when it comes to the protection of all of these rights. So when people think that selecting political parties or certain candidates are going to improve their economic and social circumstances, please have a look at history where this has occurred and tell me, please send comments. How many people, what percentage of these populations that attempted to vest power into individual people actually got what they sought, which was a better standard of living, a higher quality of life, more economic and social stability. Depending on which statistics you read or believe, at least 60% of the United States population is living paycheck to paycheck. One step away, one paycheck away from economic oblivion in the richest country on earth, a country with nearly 1,000 billionaires, many of whom are currently part and parcel of the administration that is running that country now. Hundreds of millions of Americans. What would that be? That would be approximately almost 200 million people that are eking out an existence. They're not truly living, they're existing. And that should not be the case. Ratifying the covenant, the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights as a matter of priority by the Democratic Party, and hopefully by the Republican Party too, and all others, should be the most important thing the United States can do to attempt to build an economic framework that is beneficial to everyone, so that everybody can have adequate housing, everybody can have education, everybody can have enough food, everybody can have decent work, and so on. So have a look all over the internet. There's 1,000,001 articles about the covenant. Look at the case law, look at the jurisprudence, look at countries that have done so and how seriously they take it. And hopefully, before too long, we will have universal ratification of this important cornerstone treaty. Thank you very much. Please subscribe, please like, tell your friends. We really appreciate your comments. We've already received many comments. Keep them coming. And There's a lot more to come. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.